Hi, everyone. Welcome to our June Layer 7 office hours. I'm Pamela Deason, the marketing manager for Layer 7. Today, we have a topic of the portal. The API portal 5.4.2 is the overview is going to be shared by Greg Thompson, the product manager for Layer 7 in the portal. Just a quick note, this, as you've noticed, right, our platform has changed just a little bit. If you prefer to type your questions in at the top of the screen, you'll see a little icon with a question mark. You can go there and type your questions in. We prefer it to be interactive, honestly, but it's up to you. So you will be able to take yourself off mute to ask questions, but if you prefer typing it, that's fine as well. So that's it. And one more note, we do record. So it will be on our YouTube channel. I will put in the chat during the presentation a link to our YouTube channel in case you're not familiar with it. That way you can subscribe to it. There's a lot of other videos that are out there that are really good. And one final thing is we're not going to use the GoToWebinar platform going forward. So starting in July, we will actually switch to Zoom again. I'll be sending out an email about that, so you'll be aware that it will be on your calendar going forward as a Zoom meeting. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Greg. Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Pam. So yeah, I'm Greg Thompson. I'm product manager for the Layer 7 API portal. Today, I'm going to go over the new upcoming portal 5.4.2 release. The release should come out either tomorrow or early next week. I think right now it's looking like tomorrow is going to happen, but you know, until it happens, it's always subject to change. So you'll just get a quick preview of what that'll include. Yeah, so the first slide here, we're going to talk about some of the key, kind of the marquee capabilities. I'm not going to walk through these right now. I'm going to actually have a detailed slide on each one of these, and I'll go through a demo of those. So I'll just kind of splash those up for the moment. And then they have another capability here related to multi-language. So I'll come back to these a little bit later in the call. We'll start first with some of the, I guess, additional capabilities, some of the less marquee features, but still important. So first off, we have the logging and auditing improvements. So I think currently today, the auditing doesn't capture the IP address today. So that has been added. So basically the IP address, if it's known, will be recorded as part of the audit record. And if a load balancer is in play, which it usually is, as long as the header is being set by the load balancer, we will get the originating IP from that header. So basically, when you go to look at the audit logs now, you will see an IP address column and the ability to filter by IP address as well. The next item is removal of processed request objects. Folks may not be aware that these objects hang around or not, but anyway, today when you accept or reject a request, so this could be like a new registration request or a new app or whatever, those actually are still retained in the database. And over time, right, this can eat up space and, you know, potentially, you know, just slow things down a little bit. It really hasn't been a major problem, but it's something we wanted to make sure we get ahead of. So with this new release, what we're doing is any request that's already been approved or rejected that's older than 1 year will be automatically cleaned up. And there is a configurable setting if you want to change this behavior, if you want to have it happen sooner or later, or not at all, you can control that. And that's a documented set of settings. One thing to note, pending requests will not be cleaned up. So if you have a pending request that's been sitting out there for over a year, it's still going to sit there as a pending request. You'll still need to go in and either approve or reject it to have it actually cleaned up. The next item is support for Kafka. So we're on a journey to replace the existing RabbitMQ messaging system with Kafka. Going forward, any new gateways that are registered or enrolled with the portal will be using Kafka by default. There is a cluster-wide property called portal.deployer.rmq. If that's set to true, that means it's going to be using RabbitMQ. And of course, these are on the gateways that are enrolled with the portal. And if it's set to false, it'll indicate that it's using Kafka. Currently enrolled gateways will not change. They'll have this cluster wide property. It'll be set to true to indicate it's using RabbitMQ. And if and when you're ready to move to Kafka, you can just go in and change that cluster wide property, and it should work just the same as before. One thing to note, you do need to get gateway 11.1 or higher to leverage this, and HTTP proxy support is there as well. So if you're using the portal and gateway and your infrastructure requires a proxy server to communicate between the two, that is supported just as it was with RabbitMQ. Right. Email notifications for new user registrations has been added. So previously, when you had a new user sign up to use the portal, the only way you were able to find that is by going in, logging into the portal, and looking for any new requests that need to be processed. Now you'll actually be able to go in and configure the system to send a user email indicating a new user registration. And this can be sent to specific roles. And you can also set it up so it's done as a digest report. So instead of sending one for every single registration, you could have basically a regular cadence set to indicate how often you'd like to get a report of those. And I'll jump over and I'll show that one real quick. So let me log into my portal I have here. All right, so if I go over to the settings menu, and for example, if I go to request settings, there's this new email notifications for registration request. If I turn that on, what happens if you have no specific role you want it to be sent to, you can just basically say send it to the portal admin. That's checked by default. If you do have another role configured that's able to approve those requests, in this case, I've just added that role to a role called product manager that I have. I can choose to select those notifications to be sent to that role and basically fall back to the administrator if there happens to be no users actually assigned to that role. And then if I want to configure the digest, that's over in user settings. There's a link here directly from this menu that will direct me right over to user settings. And then the user reporting here is where I'll be able to turn on those scheduled reports. And I'll again be able to define the cadence as well as the same role selections that were there in the previous screen. Right. The next feature, which I will talk about, is the applications list page, the ability to search by an API key. So sometimes when you're troubleshooting, you may get some log messages and you may only know the API key. And if you have thousands and thousands of applications, you may not be able to quickly figure out which application that API key actually belonged to. So there's a new kind of lookup by API key capability that you'll be able to now kind of jump right to that. So let me show that. I'm going to go over and grab a key real quick off of one of the gateway deployments just to have one. Let's see, key deployments, and I'll just pick this second one here. So if I go to the applications list page, you'll see this new link here called Go to Key. If I click on that, and I know the API key, I can go ahead and paste that in. And just note this has to be the full API key, right? So it's not something you can wildcard, partial match. It's an exact match only. Once I paste that in, then I can decide whether I want to go to the key deployments view of that or to the actual overview. I'll just say overview in this case. I click go. And this takes me directly to that application. I see this is the application JB tracking 1. Set it right to where that key is defined there within the application. So again, just a handy feature for helping kind of narrow down and jump right to a specific key when you're not quite exactly sure which app it belongs to. Right. Next item, configuration intelligence. So this was a kind of a major new functional area that was added with 5.4.1. The idea to be able to go in and create basically dashboard views of certain matching gateway configuration. For example, I could have gone in and search for, how many certificates on the gateways are going to be expiring in the next, 60 days, right? So that had a support for a lot of different gateway entities. In 5.4.2, we've expanded the list of gateway entities to the list that you see here. There's still a few remaining outstanding entities to be covered that'll most likely be done in the next release. But we're continuing to expand that out to include all of the gateway entities that are possible. The other item here provide the ability to view not deployed entities. So previously, when you were looking at kind of deployment status, not deployed was not something you could jump straight to, right? You could see the count, but then you kind of had to figure out, what exactly was not deployed. Now you'll actually be able to do that. So if I jump over to one of our gateways, this one again, and I go, for example, to the overview. On the overview tab here, you'll see, again, I've got 11 portal published APIs that are not deployed. I've got 2 gateway published that are not deployed. These are now links, right? So previously they were not, right? They were just numbers that were static. But now if I want to see, okay, what are those 11 portal published APIs that are not deployed, I can just click directly on that. And this will take me directly to the list of those APIs which are not deployed. So again, just another way to kind of quickly get down and if you're troubleshooting why things are not deployed, what exactly you need to look at. This just helps again quickly get to that exact list so you can get to troubleshooting that much quicker. All right. Next item here, Druid upgraded 35.0.1. That's just more of staying current on their underlying platform. This should really just be transparent. Then the last item, the remote key store support for Gemfire. This was really a test effort. The gateways have been supporting Gemfire. The way the portal uses remote key stores is through the gateway. So technically, this is something that working prior to this release. But we just made sure that from a testing point of view it was covered and there were no issues. And so Gemfire as a remote key store is officially fully supported for the portal and gateway. If anyone is using the operator, support for Gemfire for remote key stores is coming for that a little bit later. But for those that are not, it is currently available now. Right. So now kind of jumping into some of the more marquee capabilities. The first thing we've done is we've introduced something called infrastructure management. I'm going to talk about that next. But before I go there, I want to talk a little bit about how the basically registering, or what was previously called enrolling, of a gateway has changed. With this new set of capabilities where we've added the ability to have API management, which was the traditional use of the portal. We added the intelligence capabilities last release, and they're continuing to expand on that. And now we've introduced infrastructure management. The way we've done this, it's actually going to allow you to have multiple gateways enrolled with different portals if you choose, right? So when you go to enroll or register a gateway, you can say, yep, I want to use all 3 of these capabilities with this portal, and you can select all 3 and go through that registration or enrollment. Or you may say, hey, I want to just use API management with this portal, but I want to use a different portal for perhaps the intelligence and the infrastructure capabilities. So this now lets you do that, right? So the same gateway may be registered with different portals, but for different functional areas. So this gives a little bit more flexibility. So it's not a tight one-to-one portal to gateway association any longer, as long as you're crossing the boundaries of these major functional areas. Another thing you may notice is that we started or are starting to stop using the term proxy. So we've kind of renamed, there's no longer a manage proxies menu item. It's now actually moved under infrastructure and it's called gateways. So you'll see more and more of that change as we kind of go away from using the term proxy. Do note PAPI, the portal API, has not changed. We didn't want to break anybody's current automation or anyone that's using the portal APIs directly. So the proxy endpoint still exists, but within the UI itself, we're referring to it all as gateway. So let me jump over. I'm going to use this portal. Okay, so if I go to infrastructure gateways, you'll notice now this is the list of gateways that are currently registered with this portal. As I mentioned, if I go under manage, there's no longer a manage proxies endpoint. That has moved infrastructure gateways. If I want to register a new gateway, I'm just going to literally click register gateway on the top right. Give it a name. Let's call this office hours. And now I can pick and choose which capabilities I want to actually use. So the API management capabilities, which was formerly the enrollment, that looks pretty much the same as what you would have seen in previous versions with the same types of options. But now I can also choose gateway infrastructure and intelligence. And again, I can decide maybe I don't want to use API management for this specific enrollment, right, or registration. So I'll save that. Once I've done that, there is this need to basically download a bundle. So for both the infrastructure and intelligence, and by the way, this tab called intelligence, that's actually going to be renamed to registration. So when you see the official release, that'll be called registration. But for both the intelligence and infrastructure capabilities, you will need to basically come in here and download a bundle and then apply those to the gateways that you're registering. So the bundle itself, you'll create a passphrase for that. That can be anything you want. You can set that and click download. That bundle will then become a JSON file, which is basically a GraphQL bundle. And then there are steps here of how to apply that bundle to your gateway. So you can either do it via GraphQL, via some testing tool like Bruno, for example, or a script that you can get access to from our TechDocs site. So this is a one-time process for registration. This basically puts all the components on the gateway that the portal needs to perform the intelligence and the infrastructure capabilities. Once you've done that, your gateway should be fully up and registered with the portal. And if I go back to my gateways list, you'll be able to see they should move to the connected state, what you see here. Great. If there are any questions, feel free. I know we're going quick and there's a lot of content. So if there are any questions, feel free to interrupt me. Otherwise, I'll kind of just keep going. Right. Next major set of capability here is around this idea of version management within our infrastructure management category. The idea here is this is going to give you a centralized way of managing your gateway versions. It's supported for the virtual appliance OVA gateways today, and it's going to help you with applying the MPPs, the MSPs, and doing minor version upgrades of those gateways. Obviously, to do that, you'll have to go through that registration process that I was just showing. And Gateway 11.2.1 is the minimum version that you can start to use this with. We are looking at seeing if we can step back to previous versions, but for now, 11.2.1 is the first version that you'll be able to use. So let's jump over and take a look at this. If I go here, I've got, so I'm in the infrastructure gateways page. If I expand this kind of a 3-node cluster here, I can see that I have these 3 nodes. They're currently on gateway version 11.2.1. And there's a platform version which kind of corresponds to the MPP. So this is an April 24th version of the platform that's running. So the portal's aware of that. The portal also puts this blue up arrow to indicate that an upgrade is available. So that'll be kind of how you kick off the upgrade process. Before I show that though, I do want to jump over. So if I go to the infrastructure menu and go to version management, this is the area that defines what versions the portal knows about. This is driven off of a metadata file, which we will begin to publish out on our support site. And if I expand this link here at the top, This will let me know where I can go to get that metadata file. So if the current metadata file is over 30 days old, it'll kind of warn you there's probably a new version since we release new monthly patches on a monthly basis. And basically you would click on this get version metadata. That'll take you to actually get the file. Then once you have that file, you'll click on upload. You'll just drag that file right here. And once you have the new metadata file in place, the list below will be updated to include any new versions that are defined in that metadata. When you first, if there is a new version, so for example, if there was this May 24th one, if there was a June 30th one, for example, that would show up. It would not have a check mark beside the update file. So the next step you would need to follow is if you actually want to say apply that new version, you will still need to go to the Gateway Solutions and Patches page, which is linked up here at the top. You would still need to download that patch file. And then you would upload it here to the portal. So you would just click on the version. So for example, I'm on the May, right? This tells me what it knows about it. All the data you see here is from the metadata file itself. So it will tell you, what are the CVEs addressed, any release notes, and what you would see is an upload file here to actually upload the patch itself. Since this one's already uploaded, it just lets you know you can delete it if you'd like. But what this allows you to do is, upload this file once now, and then going forward, the portal will actually deploy that to all the gateways remotely where it needs to be applied. And also, if I'm on a specific version, I can click on the deployed tab. It will let me know where this patch is actually deployed. So currently it is not deployed anywhere, so there are no gateways running this MPP version. If I click on the upgrade tab, this will let me know where it can be applied, right? So these are gateways that are compatible or ready to be upgraded to this specific version. So I could actually go here. So I have this 3-node cluster. So from here, I can actually click on this upgrade button. This is going to take me to this cluster. I can decide maybe I want to apply it to all the nodes. Right, so I have a 3-node cluster. It is going to warn me or make me at least confirm that I have made a backup. So just like when you're upgrading your gateways today, the recommendation is you take a snapshot of your VM, ensure you have proper backups. If something were to go wrong during this process, that is still your way to recover. You would still need to restore your snapshot to get the gateway back into a valid state. So let's go ahead and click Start Upgrade. So what's going to happen, you'll see there's multiple steps. So if I expand this one, I can see, it's going to start the upgrade process. This one's reaching out and stopping database replication. The third one is actually downloading now, so we can actually see the progress. So that happened fairly quickly. But there are basically the last few lines of the log file are shown right here, so I can see what's happening as it's happening. If I'll jump down and open the stop gateway, we can see that's happening. Now the installation's happening. If I want to see more information, I can actually click Open Logs. This will take me to the expanded view of the log file. So now I can actually see that entire log file, and I can actually search, and it'll jump me to specific search matches that I make. If I close the logs, one thing I can do is I can minimize. So this takes a little while to do the upgrade. I can actually minimize this window, get it kind of out of my way. I can see the status up here in the top. I can kind of expand or collapse that status. And I can go do other things, right? If I want to navigate over to, maybe I want to look at some APIs while I'm waiting or whatever, I can do that. I can still come back. I can see the upgrade still in progress. If I click this arrow, I can expand back. I can see where the current status is. So right now I'm at step 5 of the first gateway, 4 of the other 2 gateways. And this process will continue to go until that completes. One thing I could also do is in certain steps, I can actually pause. So right now I'm at the install step, so it's kind of a point of no return. There's really no ability to pause, but if perhaps if I wanted to pause after the download happened, I could put this upgrade into a pause state, and then I could, resume it later. I could perhaps abort the installation at that point or the upgrade. And so that just kind of gives me a little more flexible control over, the steps that are being done to actually do this patch application. So let's see where we're still at the install. Again, I can look at the logs, like I can see what's happening here, fairly real time. And basically what'll happen once this installation finishes, right, it'll go through, it'll clean up any of the upgrade. Yep, we're getting to that point now. So the cleans up happening, the reboot's happening, right? So the reboot's happening, so there's no logs while the reboot is actually going on. But once the reboot is finished, it will actually start the gateway back up. And the first node, which is the one controlling replication right now, will also, it's going to reboot, it's going to start up, and then it will actually resume database replication and then become available. So the process here is getting close to being done. I'll just expand these two so we can see them as they happen. Yep, so the gateway is up, replication, basically letting me know that it's starting replication. We can actually see the last two completed successfully. The upgrades have completed on those. So right now we're just waiting on the first node, which is resuming the replication. So that should happen here fairly quickly. There's a question that came in while we're waiting here. Are there plans to support software gateway for infrastructure management? Yes, there absolutely is the plan to do software. So that'll be more about applying the MSP. So that will most likely make it into the next release. Just didn't quite finish in time for this one, but yeah, we do plan to cover that form factor as well. While we're waiting, I'll minimize this for another moment. Let's go back to the gateways list. One thing I'll point out while that's finishing, maybe. Actually, I clicked the wrong thing there. I'll do it on this one. So that one's still being upgraded. So yeah, there it comes. Now it's finished. So one thing I know, you can see this little key icon beside the nodes within each cluster. This is an indicator. So basically, like you saw that step where it was the database replication was being stopped and started. This key indicator indicates which node has the credentials to the actual database. So it doesn't matter if the gateway is running the database or if that gateway is remote. Either way, there needs to be control to kind of stop and start replication, do database upgrades. So you will ultimately have at least one node, and it could be more than one, with the database credentials that are configured. And this is just an indicator of which node has those credentials. Right. So yeah, now we're seeing, click that. Now we're seeing that this platform version is on the May 24th. Previously it was on the April version that all succeeded. So yeah, if there are any questions on this real quick, I'll take those before I move on to other features. Question from Alex. Yep, thanks, Alex. Logs associated with the upgrades, they are stored. Right now, I can't jump to those directly from here. If there was an error that would have happened, they would be still available for me to go through and look at them and kind of see maybe what's happening. But yeah, we will be adding the ability to kind of add a log viewer in a future release where you'll actually be able to kind of see those historical logs and get more information. Yeah, so for now, if there's an error that happens, they're still there, they're still accessible. If everything succeeds, there's not a way in the UI right now to jump to those, but yeah, definitely something we plan to do. Right. Okay, for the sake of time, I'll move on. If you do have more questions, continue to put those in, and we'll jump back to those as needed. All right. So next topic up is revision histories. So for those that are familiar with how Policy Manager works and Policy Revision works, this is very similar. This is just about when you're editing the APIs within the portal itself. So going forward, we'll automatically preserve a revision for each edit of an API that happens. The max number of revisions, just like in Gateway, is set to 20 by default, but you can configure that in the API settings menu. There is this notion of marking a revision to be saved permanently. So that's basically in addition to the 20 more transient revisions you'd have, the permanent ones will stay forever. And again, similar to the way Policy Manager worked with policies, the only difference is instead of adding a comment, you're basically explicitly marking it as a permanent save. And then of course, when you exceed that number of revisions that are configured, the oldest one is the one that gets removed. So let's jump over and take a quick look at that. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to jump to the next slide because these two are so interrelated. The next thing you'll notice as I'm showing API revision history is we've changed the API page design itself. We've removed this wizard. So you used to, when you go in to edit the API, you kind of had to save and next. And even though you really didn't need to go through that entire wizard every time, most people thought you did, right? So we redesigned that and kind of broke that out to where it's more obvious that you can just kind of make a change and save it and be done with it. So let me show off both of those together here. All right, so if you're going to manage APIs, I'm just going to pick, say, this account management API. So the configuration information about an API, the things like the endpoint, the Swagger file, all that stuff is now under a tab called config. You'll notice here I have a kind of a left-hand vertical tab structure to this page. So kind of all the core configuration data is available within this first configuration section. And so I can come in and look at this, and maybe I want to jump this up to 1.0.2. Maybe I want to remove the word API from the name and just call it account management. Other information I may leave the same. Maybe I want to change the tags, right? Maybe I want to say, I want to add the cards and the delivery tags to this. I can do that. And so I've made those changes. I can just go ahead and click save. So now those are now updated. The actual policy templates are in the second tab. So this looks pretty much the same as it did before. Just kind of tab down within the second tab of the configuration tab. And then lastly, revision history. So this is the feature we're talking about. Here I can see all the revisions that have happened for this API. You'll note here I marked this one as retained permanently. If I wanted to retain another one permanently, I just basically click on the three dots off to the right, and I can see, yep, I want to retain this one. Maybe I want to see, what's, this last one here that I did 3 days ago. I marked it retained permanently. Maybe I want to compare it to the actual active version. So I can do that. I can say compare to active. Now I have those two revisions side by side, and I can look and see what the difference is. So I can see here the API name is different, the version is different. If I were to have changed any policy templates, those would have been highlighted as to which categories and/or templates might have changed. And then at the bottom here, I can see that the cards and delivery tags were added. So this gives me just a quick way to actually look back and forth between a couple different revisions and figure out, what changed. And let's say I decided this active version has a mistake. It's not really what I wanted. And I want to restore the previous version. I just, again, go to that revision. Then I can click restore revision. And it's going to ask me to make sure I want to do it. I'm going to say yes, restore it. And what happens is basically it creates a new revision and marks it as the active revision. So your previous version you just replaced, in this case, is still there. and the new one is also there. And if I were to go back to the configuration now, I would see, yep, the word API is back in this. It's back to version 1.0.0, and the tags are back to just the one tag that I had previously. All right. I'm going to move on. Again, if there are any questions, feel free to throw those into the GoToMeeting chat here. The next topic that I'll cover is the GraphQL endpoint for applications. So for 5.4.1, we introduced a new GraphQL endpoint for managing APIs. In this release, we've now extended that GraphQL support to applications. This basically now allows you to work with applications in a single request instead of having to use the multiple granular REST calls before. So for example, if you wanted to publish an API before, you had to basically create an application, add a key to it, add an API to it, and then call another API to actually publish it, right? So minimum of kind of 4 API calls to get an API or get an application published. Now you can do all that in one call. There's queries that are supported. You can either get a single application based on some criteria, or you can get a list of applications that are also based on a filter criteria. And then mutations that are supported, create, update, and delete. So you can basically create a brand new application with one single GraphQL request now. So let me jump over. So I have Bruno set up here with some requests. I'm going to first authenticate to get a token to be able to call the portal API. That. And then here's an example of basically a getting of applications. And I'm looking, in this case, I'm filtering for a specific key. If you look at the variables here below, bring that up. So basically, I'm looking for any application that is currently has a status of enabled and has this specific API key. So I'm going to post in my token for authentication. All right, and if I make this request, now you'll see I get back the information. So I know this actually belongs to this GDuck shipping application. There's the API key, and I see that this product is currently assigned to that application. So the data returned is basically the data that I've asked for over here. So I've asked for, what are the total elements, page size, etc. And I've asked for these explicit fields of the application. In addition, I have asked for any APIs, products, keys, or custom fields that are associated to it. So making this one call, I'm able to pull all that data back for that application together there. Same goes for creating an application. Again, I'm just going to paste in my authentication token here. So if I want to create a new application, this information is the information I'm going to provide. I'm going to basically call this one office hours. I've got an organization ID. I've got a couple custom fields I'm going to provide. I want to add these two APIs, these two products, these two keys. And indicate that I want to go ahead and publish it. All right. So this is all that needs to be done for a single application to be defined in one single step now. Right. So I'm going to go ahead and send that request over. And we'll see we've got it back. We've got a new application called Office Hours. And if I now go over to my portal and go over to Manage Applications, we see here's my new application, Office Hours. It's enabled. I see the custom field values are there. I see the APIs are here. And I see the product is here. And I should also see the API keys are here. So now, like I say, you can do all that with one single request that used to take multiple requests to actually happen. All right, moving on. Next core feature here is this idea of adding a global endpoint quota limit. The way this basically works is, everything from the UI or via external calls are actually making API calls via the backend using the portal API. Previously, even authenticated users really had if they were authenticated, they were allowed to do as much of whatever they wanted to do, right? So if I had a valid login, I had the permission to create APIs, I could go in and create as many APIs as I wanted to create, right? Not that anyone would do it on purpose, but it could be a script that goes awry. It could be a malicious user that somehow obtained credentials, however. So there's basically, previously there was really no way to put any kind of limit in terms of who could create how much of anything, right? We could limit them to not being able to create, but not limit how much, right? So there's this new setting basically now that lets you control that. The way this is set up is currently it's going to be set up through the Portal API settings endpoint. So there's this new setting called Global Endpoint Quota Limits. The example JSON structure you see on the right indicates the way this is kind of set up. So you can either apply global limits, and it could be actions like just create, update, delete could have a certain limit, or a read action could have a different limit. You could break it down into, say, the API management section, right? Give specific limits for API management as a whole, or even within the API management section, the specific limit to APIs themselves. Right, so through this, for example, I could say I want to basically limit the creation of or updates or deletes of any APIs to 10 per minute max, right? Once that's in place, anyone that's trying to do more than that will start to get error messages and basically prevented from taking those actions until the interval has essentially expired to reset their limit. And the way these counters work, they are basically based, if it is an authenticated user, it's going to be based on the ID of that user. If it's an unauthenticated user that's basically coming from the outside, we will limit, but based on the IP address itself, right? So this is really a brute force attack protection kind of mechanism. And by default, this is off, right? We'll say that you will need to, if you want to enable this, you definitely need to put some thought behind the limits that you're setting up, do some testing. This is not something we wanted to just blindly turn on by default for everyone. This is really something you need to think about proper limits and such if you want to put this protection in place. And so that's why by default it is off, but it is available to be configured. Right. The next thing here is the idea of controlling feature flags via the portal UI itself. So, there's a lot of things over the years that the portal has added behind a feature flag. Feature flags are often sometimes hard to discover, right? You may not know a feature even exists, right? Unless you're carefully reading release notes and documentation. And then if you knew it exists, it still was something you had to go figure out what was the name of that flag, how do I set it, that kind of stuff. So what we're doing is we're starting to bring these into the UI. So for this release, we've added some for general settings, for API settings, and for email settings. And these will just show right up in the UI. If you have permission to set these settings, they will be available to you. So I'll jump over and just show these real quick. For example, if I go to general settings, you will see, for example, I can now turn on distributed rate limiting, turn on the operator support. There's the idea of being able to customize the deployment target ports, your help text, etc. Intelligence infrastructure, right? If these are installed on the platform, those will also be things you can turn on. Again, these major categories of features are currently off. But you will need to install components within the portal installation to enable those and then have those available. And note, again, I think I highlighted this in a previous slide, but these two capabilities are only available on premise, right? So those will not be available for SaaS. I'd also mentioned API settings, right? You'll notice things like the public API catalog, the ability to deploy the tags and the spec. Those are all now just settings that you can basically control right here within the UI. This max revisions that we talked about, the API revision history, that's also set right here. It's defaulted to 20. Email settings was the other one. So email settings are here as well. So you can toggle these and turn those on and off. yeah, so that's really it for that one. And then the next item that I was going to go through is this idea of multi-language support within the main portal UI. So in 5.4.1, we introduced multi-language in the excuse me, for French, so English and French. So by default, English is there, it's turned on. French is available, but you have to turn it on. And most of the portal is supporting that, but there were a few items that were not quite supporting French yet, and that's things like the Open API spec, the idea of email templates, API documentation, and there are a couple others that will be coming in the future. I think around like EULA support and maybe one or two other items. So if I go look at these, so if I go to take a look at an API, for example, so I'll pick this account management again. So if I go to config, so you'll notice here I have the Swagger file that's uploaded for this. It's currently has this indicator that it's in English. It's marked as one to deploy to the gateway. If I were to say I want to have a French version of this, I could just go to upload. I will just going to pick one at random for now. So that version, this could be like the accounts read-only Swagger, French version. I could say this is French. And again, I can choose whether I want this to be deployed to the gateway or the other. You can only have one actually deployed at the gateway, and for runtime enforcement, as long as the schema is there, that's really what counts. This is just more about what renders on the spec tab, so that if a user has a French set preference for their locale, and you have a French version of the Swagger file, they'll be able to see all the documentation generated by that Swagger in French. If the French is not available and English is the portal default language, the English version will be shown instead. So it will fall back to the portal's default language. Same goes for documentation. Here we have English and French, right? So again, I can add documentation in both languages. The other item was the email templates. So email templates is another area that was not previously available in the UI. These were previously only able to be customized via the portal API. Now I can actually see all the email templates right here within the UI itself. And if I click on one, say like account disabled, this will let me go ahead and customize that email format that is sent out to users. So if someone's account gets disabled, this is what email they'll get to be notified. You can decide, the content of this message. There is this idea of variables that are placeholders. So if I want to, put those in, right, I can click on it and it will automatically add that within the body of the message. And this will just tell you what variables are available to be used. And you'll also notice here, since I have French enabled for this portal, if I go over to French, this will give me the French version of this template. And so what happens is whenever an email needs to be sent to the user in this case, basically the portal will see the locale preference of that user in their profile, and then send the correct version of the template based on those settings. All right, and I believe that was my last slide. There is one question here. Can you note how these new features help with gateway and portal Kubernetes architecture? Then are you? I guess you're referring to the infrastructure, like the infrastructure.
Yeah, just the registration, intelligence upgrades and things like that.
Yeah, the upgrades. So right now, the upgrade support is restricted to virtual appliance gateways, right? So Kubernetes gateway deployments is something will be coming. We're planning for that. Those are a bit different because they're really just changing image tags. So there's really not necessarily a need to upload or apply a patch. It's more about just changing the tag of that gateway and kind of restarting it, right? But we do plan to cover those. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. I know went through a lot of content and hopefully not too much time, but yeah, if there are any other questions, happy to take those.
I do see a question, Greg. I don't know if you've answered it already. I don't think you did. Can you note how these new features help with Gateway and
That's the
Portal?
one we just did. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm just making sure.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, so that was from Alex. So Alex, you had some other ones. Did you get all of them answered?
Yeah, Greg covered those. Thanks.
Okay, just making sure. And just for the rest of you, so you know, you can take yourself off mute if you'd like and ask a question or type it in. It's fine.
All right. And if you don't have questions, any impressions, right? The infrastructure management capability, doing upgrades, does that look like it's something you're excited about? You think will be useful? You have concerns about it? Yeah, curious for any feedback as well.
No, Greg, Robert here.
Robert?
Infrastructure stuff, very, very interesting. Very interested to run that past one of my customers. Unfortunately, they're the software gateway, so I'm going to have to wait for the next release.
Okay.
But for the Kubernetes stuff, you mentioned just switching image tags. Yes, but will you be looking at customizing the repositories or the registries where those image tags are going to be found, rather than reaching out to the internet ones? Because obviously some of the customers are, their gateways will not be able to do that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's absolutely something we have to consider, right? How you can define the repositories or registries that have the actual images. Because yeah, you're right. I guess the big supply chain attack model, right? Everyone wants to preserve their images in a special place, right, that they control, right?
Correct. Yeah. Thank you.
Let's see. There's a question here from Daniel. It's considered any future integration between Layer 7 APIM and API Gateway with IDSP. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some work going on there. I think some of that work is more about a new upcoming product called Agent Minder, right? It's going to be more in the AI space. Yeah, I'm curious. Other thoughts? We definitely have, the ability to interact with, doing like OAuth, right? The required introspect OAuth token that would work with IDSP for validation. But yeah, curious other ideas you might have, but yeah. Feel free, Daniel, if you have some other ideas to reach out to me on that. Yeah, but yeah. Anyone else? Token consumption and mix it with risk off. Yeah, I mean, I think those are things that certainly could be done. Yeah, using the token, right, the required introspect token assertion that's there within the gateway, calling out the risk. Yeah, I guess it's a question of, I guess more natural assertions that just do it versus, calling like the RDSP APIs to do that. But yeah, there's definitely some things that we could, think about for that for sure. You're welcome. All right, one last call. Any other questions, comments, feedback? Anything related to AI? How to limit token consumption? Yeah, so that's really going to be this new product to keep the lookout for called Agent Minder. That's going to be our first foray into kind of more AI use cases. That'll be a launch of a new Layer 7 AI gateway. Within that capability, obviously there are some of those use cases that the Layer 7 API gateway can do today. So yeah, we can definitely, if you have some specific questions on that, we've got some content we can point you to around that. But right now, the main AI story is going to be around the Agent Minder product, which will be launching very soon. You're welcome. Right. In the rolling cluster upgrade, you describe each node's installation is a point of no return, and rolling back requires manual VM snapshot. If node 1 finishes, but another node fails partway through its install, does the cluster continue to serve traffic safely with mixed gateway versions during that window, or is mixed version cluster unsupported? So yeah, basically it's still unsupported. This is, just as it would happen today when you're manually doing this. We're not changing how the gateway upgrades, work and, mixed node support. We're just trying to basically give you central control of it, from one place. So you don't have to go manually copy the files, manually execute the commands and all that. So yeah, if you do have a failure point of a node in the cluster, you'd have to, if that node's offline, I guess everything else is going okay. But if that node comes back online, it's probably not going to be able to join the cluster until it's, put into a valid state. All right. Yep, I'll give another one last call. I think we can wrap it there. Thanks everyone for your time. If you do have additional questions, feel free to reach out to us offline. We will follow up with you on those.
Yeah, and I just want a quick reminder, I did put in the chat the YouTube channel. This is recorded. You can always go back or go to our YouTube channel to listen to it. And thank you all for joining.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Goodbye.